Right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. All right. Hopefully, we're going to have a better day today. Yesterday was wild. I had one phone that just completely started reloading and upstarting and all this stuff to the phone all of a sudden. And so hopefully it's done. And then I went to another phone, and then that one started doing the muting of the sound. So hopefully we are back on track today. We're probably going to take the last maybe 10 minutes of today's broadcast, to allow you all to call in and share any comments or ask any questions that you would like to ask. So I will put a number up towards the end of today's broadcast, so you'll have an opportunity to do that. Good morning, Henry. Good morning, Lady Barbara. I thought I saw come in. Good morning, Pastor Ben. If anything goes on with this broadcast, though, please keep in mind, good morning, Lady Judy. Please keep in mind you can always hop off of Periscope and go to my YouTube channel, which is Church Love 333. For the most part, that broadcast is it stays pretty consistent, and it doesn't jump, it doesn't cut off. All right. So if you ever have a problem over here on Periscope, I'm also live streaming at the same time on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Church Love 333. You can also subscribe there and hit the bell, and that will notify you anytime that I come on my channel. All right. So we're going to jump right into it this morning. We're talking healthy, wealthy, and wise. And we're starting with our book, The Story of Food. We start talking about the ancestors. We started talking about migration patterns and how certain things allowed the hunter-gatherers to not just travel to get their food, but as they looked at different ways of figuring out how to process their food, it enabled them to begin to start settling down, because they started figuring out ways to preserve their food for long periods of time. So we are now on the section of this book called Nuts and Seeds. Nuts and Seeds. And I want to just read you a couple of things from here. Talks about seeds as early mints. In medieval times, seeds were coated in layers of sugar, an expensive and time-consuming process, and eaten as sweetmeats and breath fresheners. Generally, however, seeds were not consumed as much as nuts, although sunflower seeds became popular in Russia in the early 18th century when Peter the Great introduced the plant there. Poppy seeds were used in spice mixtures in India, where the Indian poppy's pale seed is ground and used as a thickener. So we said we were going to go into specific kinds of nuts, and I want to talk to you a little bit today about the almond. The almond nut. Almonds. Considered a fertility charm by the ancient Romans, this sweet tasting nut has provided the basis of desserts and cakes for centuries. It is also the source of oil and flavorings for a host of foods and drinks. For thousands of years, almonds have been regarded as a symbol of hope, a symbol of rebirth and good fortune. One of the oldest mentions in literature appears in the Bible's book of Numbers, where Aaron's rod blossoms and produces ripe almonds. Almonds were a popular food in ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, while the Romans regarded it as a Greek nut, calling it nut graeca. In fact, wild almond trees are native to Middle East and Western Asia, but cultivation quickly spread from there to the Mediterranean. They were taken by Phoenician traders to Spain, and by the 8th century, they were being widely cultivated in the south of France, from where they spread to Italy and the rest of Europe. Almonds played an important role in early Arab and medieval European cooking. They were taken to North America by Franciscan friars in the 1700s, but it was not until the early 20th century that the almond industry became firmly established in California, now the world's largest producer of almonds. Almonds are not true nuts, but are rather seeds encased in a hard outer layer or hull. Two varieties are cultivated today. There are sweet almonds, and they are typically eaten as nuts and used in cooking or as a source of almond oil. The oil of bitter almonds is included in flavoring extracts for foods and liquors, such as Italy's amaretto. However, bitter almond oil contains prussic acid, which has to be removed by heating to make it safe to eat. Sweet almonds have a myriad of uses, available in shelled and unshelled, whole, flaked, or ground. They can be eaten raw, blanched, or as a salted snack, as well as featuring in numerous dishes in both savory, such as trout with almonds, and sweet. They are the main ingredient in marzipan, a thick paste consisting of sugar and finely ground almonds, sometimes bound with egg. This originated in the Middle East and became popular in Europe in the Middle Ages. Almond paste is used as a pastry filling in many cuisines, from the Portuguese tarte de amendoa to the traditional British Bakewell tart. Ground almonds are also the basis for many cookies, including macaroons. Almond flake cakes and cookies are especially popular in Spain, including the famous pan de Cadiz or Cadiz, a confection of marzipan and dried fruit. And in Sweden, a cinnamon flavored rice pudding with an almond hidden inside is a special Christmas dish. So, almond fruit, like their relative the peach, have a fuzzy skin. When ripe, the outer flesh peels away to expose the nut. All right. So the origins for almonds are Middle East and Western Asia. The major producers today are the United States, Spain, and Italy. They contain about 15% fat. They are a good source of iron. Right now, believe it or not, there is the non-food use, which is in cosmetics. Some cosmetics contain almonds, and the scientific name is Prunus dulcis. Almonds. All right. Another favorite I was eating growing up. We actually, there were several in our neighborhood. There were several tamarind trees, although I didn't know that that's what they were growing up. But our neighborhood had them all over our schoolyards, our elementary schoolyards. And so in the morning on our way to school, or once we got to school, we would pick up all of the tamarinds that had fallen to the ground, and that was like a snack for us during the day. I didn't know what they were. We called them tampas growing up, but the correct name for them was tamarinds. And I remember eating these foods when I was a little kid, and I was like, I wonder what those things are actually called, because I would never see them in the grocery store until about 2 years ago. I started like going into the Whole Food section, and I saw this, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I used to eat when I was younger. But we had lots of tamarind trees, and we had lots of pecan trees. When I lived in Tallahassee, Florida, on the campus of Florida State University, I don't know how many of them they have left, but there were pecan trees throughout the campus on Florida State's campus. And you could actually go and collect pecans off the ground, as many of them as you wanted, because there were several trees. So we're going to talk a little bit about pecans, North America's own tree nut. And believe it or not, I think there are three different kinds of pecans. There's one called the major, which it looks like a little short round one. Yep, you just picked them up. And then there's one called the Burkett. There's one called the Warwick. Actually, there's five kinds: Major, Burkett, Warwick, Havens, and Owens. And just looking at them here on the page, I would probably say I ate a whole bunch of Havens and Owens, because you can kind of look at them by the shape of them. So the only tree nut that is native to North America is the pecan. And the pecan and its pie have become linked with American celebrations, notably Thanksgiving. Now, I love pecans, but I do not like pecan pie. I don't like pecan pie and I don't like pumpkin pie. The only pie that I really, really like is sweet potato. But that's just me, all right? Despite its name, rather than being a true nut, the pecan is actually what's called a drupe. It is a relative to the walnut. However, unlike a walnut, a pecan has a smooth shell. Although its kernel has a similar wrinkled appearance, it is darker brown and has an oilier, milder flavor. A type of hickory, pecan trees are native to the southeastern U.S. and a few Mexican river valleys. Wild pecans were a valuable food source for American Indian tribes who would gather and eat the nuts during autumn. Pecans were also used to make a nut milk by fermenting powdered pecans into a possibly intoxicating drink known as pau. Let me make sure I pronounce this as best I can. Palco hicora. Pecans may have first been cultivated by the American Indians who traded their crop with early European explorers. Certainly, Spanish colonists planted pecan trees in northern Mexico in the late 16th or early 17th century. Then other colonists followed suit in Long Island in the early 1700s. The U.S. pecan industry gathered momentum, and by 1805, advertisements in London were branding the pecans as meriting attention as a cultivated crop. There were still, however, great variations in size, shape, and flavor of pecan nuts, excuse me, until the mid 19th century, when a Louisiana slave named Antoine worked out how to graft wood from superior wild trees onto seedling stocks. Pecans are used mainly in sweet dishes such as pecan pie and pecan candy. So again, a slave figured out how to make use out of the pecan tree. Go figure. All right. I'm going to do one more. And then next time, I believe we will talk about cacao beans. Peanuts, the underground nut. First cultivated more than 7,000 years ago in South America, peanuts have since conquered the world. Once considered mere animal food in the U.S., they are now an integral part of the American diet, a universal snack food, and an important component of African and Asian cuisines. A little known fact for you: Americans eat about 6 pounds of peanuts per person per year, although half of that is through peanut butter, while Europeans tend to munch roasted peanuts with their drinks. All right. Fossilized shells from the Nanchoc Valley in northern Peru reveal that peanuts were grown and eaten by indigenous people around 5600 BCE. As the species was not one that grew naturally in the area, peanuts must have been farmed earlier elsewhere, probably in Bolivia. Research has revealed that the cultivated peanut was the product by selection of two wild South American species. Despite the name, peanuts, also known as ground nuts, monkey nuts, and goobers, are not true nuts but vegetables or legumes, members of the pea or the bean family. The seeds or peanuts have a substantial oil content, so are easily ground into a thick, nutritious paste. The earliest Peruvian peanut farming communities were probably the first to enjoy some form of peanut butter and may also have roasted the nuts. So, if anyone who loves peanut butter is out there, just know that you're actually eating a legume. Evidence of the peanut's long-standing popularity is found in artifacts from the Moche civilization, which flourished in Peru between the 1st and 8th centuries BCE. These include ceramics molded into peanut forms or illustrated with peanut designs, gold peanut pod-shaped jewelry, and funerary offerings of peanut-filled vases. Centuries later, the Incas also farmed peanuts, transporting their harvests of nuts on llamas. Spanish explorers took peanuts back to Spain in the late 16th century. The Dutch took them to the Dutch East Indies, and they also traveled via the Pacific to China. The Portuguese introduced peanuts to Africa and India. Despite the proximity of South America, the peanut is said to have traveled to the U.S. with slaves from Africa as late as the early 18th century. Here we are again. Slave traders stocked up on the crop because it traveled well and it was cheap and nutritious. Americans initially regarded peanuts as animal fodder or food for the poor. It was only in the 1800s that peanuts started to be grown commercially in Virginia. Dr. John H. Kellogg, who with his brother Will later created the cornflake, patented peanut butter, now an integral part of the American diet, as a nutritious health food in 1898. Impressed with his teachings, Seventh-day Adventists in Australia imported peanut butter with some of his other health foods, popularizing peanut products there. The advent of labor-saving machines to plant and harvest peanuts boosted U.S. production in the early 1900s, and when the boll weevil threatened cotton production, many Southern farmers turned to peanut growing instead. With the encouragement of the botanist and inventor George Washington Carver, a staunch advocate of peanut farming, the industry began to flourish. In the 20th century, the U.S. was the largest producer of peanuts after India and China, and was also the world's largest exporter. Whole and pureed peanuts are important ingredients in various Thai and Chinese noodle recipes. They are also used in Indonesia as dipping sauces for grilled meat and fish on skewers, in India's popular breakfast dish poha, and in West African stews, soups, cakes, and candy. James A. Garfield, U.S. President, said this: "Man cannot live by bread alone, he must have peanut butter." Peanuts were and continue to be big business in the tropics. A heavy stack of peanuts are carried across gangplanks at the foot, of a great mound of peanuts that are waiting to export. In the 1930s, Americans could actually treat themselves to a handful of peanuts for just 1 penny, dispensed in the innovative vending machine at the time. Most of us remember the first version of the vending machine, right? The bubble gum machine where you have it all filled up with the bubble gums and you put your quarter in or your dime or your nickel and twist it. Well, they also had that for peanuts back in the day in the 1930s. All you had to do was pay 1 penny for a handful of peanuts. Who knew? Peanuts grow in the ground on trailing stems within fruit pods containing up to 7 seeds or nuts on each stem. Lastly, the origins of peanuts is South America. Major producers are China, India, and Nigeria. Main food component, it contains about 39% fat. It's a good source of iron, vitamin E, and vitamin B. And there you have it for peanuts. Many coming from Africa. All right, let's get into our wealth section. We are continuing with the book Wealth Can't Wait and the Entrepreneur's Playbook. Let's take a look at our next wealth principle, our next wealth habit, rather. Habit 1 was living life by design. Habit 2 was making business decisions based on solid fundamentals. Habit 3 was sticking with what you know and drilling deep, or becoming an expert in your topic. And habit 5, chunking down big goals and adding accountability. You know, that is one of the buzzwords that has been out quite a bit, is this word and this term, accountability. And we're also going to get into habit 6, spend less than you earn and invest the rest. Spend less than you earn and invest the rest. Let's look at habit number 5 right now. Habit 5, chunk down big goals and add accountability. Sometimes our biggest life goals seem so overwhelming, we rarely see them as a series of small, achievable tasks. But in reality, breaking down a large goal into smaller tasks and accomplishing them one at a time is exactly how any big goal gets achieved. Jack Canfield. If you chunk down big goals and be accountable for them, your life will change. Paul attended and graduated with honors from 3 schools with 3 degrees. He has a degree in economics from the University of Pittsburgh, a master's in industrial relations from Oxford University, and a Juris Doctor from Cornell Law School. His experience at Oxford was effortless for him. His experiences getting his other degrees, he says, were beyond awful. The difference in his experiences was not discipline or brain power. The difference was what we call chunked down accountability. Paul was always an extreme example of a leave it till the last minute to finish, study the night before the exam kind of person. He struggled in college and in law school. Law school was the worst because the way it was structured enabled him to procrastinate the most. At Cornell, like most law schools, nothing counts except for the final exam. There were no midterms, there were no graded assignments. All the classwork, all the notes, all the assignments counted for 0. Everyone's grades for the majority of the courses were based 100% on the final exam. 100%. Because no work was graded before the exam, no accountability, the impetus for Paul to do anything other than wait till exam time was nil. And he came through as expected, having done nothing the entire semester as he entered finals. The awful all-nighters he experienced as an undergraduate turned into a solid 2-week exam period cram session with almost no sleep. He would study 20 out of 24 hours, cramming for the exams. It was extremely painful. It's true that he created the problem. Law school was just the perfect storm for procrastinators. But his master's degree from Oxford University was an absolute breeze. Similar to law school and perhaps more extreme, the entire degree, pass or fail, was based on 2 solid days of closed book exams taken in a special location while wearing a special exam taking outfit. A nightmare for the procrastinators, right? Not this time. As at other schools, Paul had skipped most of his classes, but once a week, every single week, all the students had a semi-private meeting with a single designated professor called their tutor. In their weekly meeting, their tutor gave them their assignment for the following week, which consisted of a long essay question on a topic they were covering that week in classes. Good morning, Lady Apostle. During these sessions, they would read aloud from the previous week's essay for comment and critique provided by the tutor and the other student. Paul met with this tutor every Thursday. Every single week he waited until the last possible moment before he would pick up the essay question and reading lists to find the answers. There would be a very late night on Tuesday, followed by more studying and another all-nighter on Wednesday. He would draft and proof the essay through the night. Thursday, he would go to the meeting with his tutor, read his essay, listen to other students read theirs, and get critiqued and graded. But the grades didn't count for anything. Then he would give the professor and another student a copy of his essay. At the end of the year, rather than prepare for an entire year's worth of study before the exam, all he had to do was read his essays, his tutor partner's essays, and the professor's comments. He poured through them and reduced them to note cards. By the time his exams came around, he had spent all his time creating the cards, but almost no time to review them. In the end, he did ace the exams. It was not until much later in life that Paul realized that the Oxford method helped him to chunk down his coursework. He broke it down into multiple mini exams, which made the end of the year review a breeze. He had never been so well prepared. He didn't even need to study. People look at the wealth building as a single event. We suggest that you look at wealth building as a process, because it is. Part of that process is chunking down your bigger goals into smaller, bite-sized ones, and then adding accountability. Accountability. That is one reason why many people need a coach. That's why they need a coach. Because some of you, and I'm being kind today, some of you will not accomplish your goal to the degree or the extent that you need to without a coach. Some people actually need coaching to help them break down their big goals into small goals so that they can begin to accomplish them. Right? I know several people right now, and I started the year praying for them first, because I've been shaking my head because they keep saying that they're going to write a book. Right? Many of these people, you could probably name them. You probably know them. You know that they are excellent in their craft, and they have so much wisdom that they have to impart that they really don't have time to go around and impart it to everyone. That's why people write books. Because maybe I can't get to everybody, but my book can go, my wisdom that I put in a book can go all around the world to places that I wouldn't otherwise be able to get to, and maybe not even in my own lifetime. All right? So once you understand that is one reason why I need to go ahead and write my book. Just trying to help somebody today. All right? Then you can do what's called hire a writing coach. A writing coach helps you begin to formulate and put onto paper what it is you need in order to complete your book. All right? Some writing coaches just help you with the writing process. Some writing coaches, like myself, actually can help you with the writing process, the editing process, the publishing process, etc. Okay? So, as he says, some people gotta have to have that accountability piece added to it. It's not that you don't have the idea, right? But you may need that extra push to help you be able to set the pace in order to accomplish your goals. So a lot of coaches do that. They help you to set the pace. It's not that you are, sometimes people feel like, man, if I have to hire a coach, then that means something's wrong with me. No, it means something is right with you. It's just that you need someone to help you keep on track, all right, to stay on course. Accountability brings an objective perspective. All right. I'm looking at some people this year, and I'm praying for them, because if you only have your friends, or if you only have your family members reviewing your work, right? There is a level of bias in their review. So you want to, again, this is another reason why you can hire a coach. You want to have somebody who brings an objective perspective to your goal setting. What can they see about you that your family and your friends may be overlooking? Sometimes the person is objective enough to be able to identify the patterns in your life that are keeping you from moving forward. And because you hired them, right? You're paying them to be honest with you, to be objective in their perspective of you. Some of your family members are not going to tell you that you keep failing in relationships because you keep picking the same kind of person, or you're jumping into a relationship too fast, or you are giving too much information of yourself before this person has made a commitment. They may not tell you that, even though they have seen that about you your whole life. All right? But if you're paying somebody to be objective with their perspective about you, they're going to be able to offer that objectiveness. They're going to be able to share with you the things that need improvement. All right? So let me continue. He says, David used to gamble, but he rarely won, so he stopped gambling. He was accountable for his own results. If you want to achieve your goals, you must begin to be accountable for your results. If you're not receiving the results you want in life, then that means you have to take some accountability and decide, what am I going to change about my life to begin to get the results that I know that I want? Have someone you can talk to, someone who will hold you accountable to your investment decisions and wealth building goals. Preferably someone that you can rely on to be real with you and help you to stay the course. I always tell people, and I'm sure other coaches out there can agree with this, all right? Don't expect me, if you're paying me to tell you the truth, don't expect me to sugarcoat it, right? Don't expect me to sugarcoat it. Expect me to tell you something that is going to help you to improve and to better whatever your goal is. So you want somebody that's going to help you to stay the course. If you ask people in Vegas how they are doing, most of them seem to say, I am up just a little bit. Obviously, this isn't true. Most people do not win in Vegas. So why is this the most common response? We believe that there are two reasons. The first is that no one wants to be seen as a loser in Vegas, so they would rather lie than tell the truth, even to themselves. The second reason is that people remember their wins more than they do their losses. They may forget that they took $300 out of the ATM and figure that because they won the last two hands and have $200 in their pocket, they are still up a bit. A peer partner, a coach, a mentor will help you look at these situations in a dispassionate way. Their objective perspective can help you to make millions. So, if you're struggling with your goals, get an accountability partner to help you. Habit number 6. Spend less than you earn and invest the rest. Dave Ramsey says this: financial peace isn't the acquisition of stuff. It's learning to live on less than you make so you can give money back and have money to invest. You are not truly winning in life until you are able to do this. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Yet so many people increase their spending as much or more as they increase their income. In the credit world, as we found out in your score, they call this your income to debt ratio. That is what creditors are often looking at. How much money are you bringing in versus how much debt have you accumulated? And if that income to debt ratio is over, I think it's over 50%, many companies kind of consider you as a risk. All right. So consider that when you're looking at taking out loans, when you're looking at buying a home, when you're looking at purchasing a car. That is one of the things they are looking at, your income to debt ratio. The culture we live in encourages spending. Spend, 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 spend. It's gotten to the point where at first, Facebook did not have ads, right? You could be on Facebook, you could see your family and your friends stuff, and you would not have ads on Facebook. And then Facebook added ads. And now most of the time, you literally have to go to all your friends' pages to get them back in your news feed, because if you don't, after a while, you'll start to see your news feed has nothing but sponsored ads in it, because there's somebody on there selling something literally all the time. So we are made to believe that we need a new car, a new TV, new clothes, new everything. We are not proposing that you live life like a pauper. That's no fun. But if you don't save some cash, you will not have anything left over to invest. The wealthy live off the cash flow from their investments or invested cash. Learn from them. Put your money to work. Think of your extra dollars as your employees. And if you put them to work for you, they will one day pay all that you need to live and more. For example, if you earn $6,000 a month and only spend $5,000, you just built $1,000 of wealth by practicing one of the simple habits of wealth building. Now put that money to work for you. Over time, you can build a small army of dollars that are working for you. Keep some emergency cash for unexpected expenses and invest the rest. It is said that I think 70% of Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck, meaning most Americans, 70%, don't really have a plan in place for savings, which is why there are people at the Capitol who were there, I believe, yesterday, standing in one of the Senate halls with empty paper plates held up, saying, we don't have any money to put food on our plates to feed our families. Just think about that. They worked for the federal government that is now having their employees on furlough, and their essential employees, they're now making them come back to work for free, also known as slavery, by the way. All right. So he says it is extremely important to know your industry, where that's where research comes into play. If you're just getting started, seek out the help of a seasoned person that is an investor or a qualified financial coach if you are unsure where to invest. One thing is certain, money left on the sidelines does nothing other than wither with inflation, worth less over time. Also, as another apostle friend of mine shared, if you are working for a company that has a 401, that offers a 401 or offers a Roth IRA, all right, utilize those things within your company. Some people don't realize that their company offers them what they call matching funds, and they will match up to a certain amount. They will give a max as to how much they're willing to match into your retirement investments. All right. So if your company says if you put up to $100 every pay period, we will also match you $100. Then I would suggest you put $100 in as opposed to 25. Right? So take advantage of when your company is willing to match you an amount, because that means you're getting double your investing. He says here, don't make the mistake of thinking that you have to be wealthy to invest. Imagine the lifelong wage earner working 40, 50, or even 60 hours a week to make ends meet, yet managing to save and invest a small amount every month. This is exactly what Ronald Read of Vermont did. When Mr. Read passed away at the age of 92, he left behind an $8 million fortune by simply spending less than he earned and investing the rest. If you don't want to invest most of your earnings like Mr. Reed, you can start small. Are you a are you a person who, I don't want to use their example here, but I guess I will. He says, "Are you a smoker, for example?" Now, it doesn't have to be smoking that is your vice. Just think about something that you spend money on every single week. In this case, he's dealing with the smoker. The Millionaire Next Door shows how a small amount of money over the course of about 46 years can grow into a sizable sum when invested. So, for example, if you were a smoker and you smoked at least 3 packs of cigarettes a day during the week, 3 packs of cigarettes over 46 years invested wisely into a portfolio would exceed about $2 million. If you're not a smoker, maybe there's another habit you can modify or give up so that you can invest the rest. The worst thing you can do is nothing. If you never start, you never gain. So, Wealth Accelerator. For the next 90 days, practice living like the wealthy. Create a budget, develop an investment strategy. You can start small. Save a percentage of your money during this time and research a few different ways that you can invest it. After the 90 days, look at your savings and weigh your options. Do you have enough to invest in stocks, to increase your contribution to your 401k, or are you inspired to keep saving for a bigger investment, such as starting your own franchise or investing in some rental property? All right. We got one more book here, The Entrepreneur's Playbook, and then we are going to give you a number where you can call in if you like to either make a comment or you have a question. So, principle number 2 of The Entrepreneur's Playbook, he talks about how a better mousetrap is not enough. And he talks about how you're going to market to people, how you're going to market your business, and a few different ways that you can market your business. He said you can market yourself as a low price provider, but there can always be someone who comes along and offers a lower price than you. So you have to keep that in mind. You can market yourself as a high price or high quality provider. All right. You can market yourself as the fastest provider, but if you're not fast, that could backfire. So if you're marketing yourself that way, make sure that you actually are the fastest. You can market yourself as a more convenient and user-friendly provider, or you can market yourself as giving someone a better experience. Maybe you have better service, maybe you're more approachable, maybe you're available to your client more than other people are, maybe you give more access, maybe you have bonus opportunities with whatever product or service or good that you're offering. So he says, proof that these work. When John Gagliardi, a college All-American and All-World USA lacrosse player, decided to go into the manufacturing business, he could have sold the same kind of equipment and clothing as his competitors. Instead, based on being personally involved in lacrosse, he realized the improvements that could be made in both their equipment and their clothing. He also redesigned the shafts of the sticks, combining titanium and aluminum to make a stronger, more affordable product for players of all ages. He had the advantage because he had been a player and he knew what the market needed. In addition, he improved the women's equipment based on their needs, not just smaller versions of men's equipment. On the marketing side, his company took an edger approach and targeted players in the inner cities, an emerging West Coast adoption of the sport, instead of going after the traditional East Coast prep school player. These became the building blocks of his profitable and successful company, Maverick Lacrosse, which he eventually sold out to Bauer Hockey. Transport. Ideas that work in one place could very well work in yet another. This is what importing and exporting are all about. If you see this idea in television all the time, when producers take a hit show in England and bring it to the United States. What was the show that everybody was watching? I cannot remember the name of it right now. Somebody can give it to me. The show that was supposedly based on DC, Washington, DC, and the president. Gosh, I can't think of it right now. It was actually an original show from Britain, but they brought it over to the United States, and Kevin Spacey was the main star of this show. It was based on the presidency, and it ran for like 5 seasons. I can't think of the name of the show, but anyway, this particular show was very, very popular before Stacey's reputation crashed the show. But it was actually a show that started in Britain, and it was brought over here to the United States. So can your idea be transported? Can you bring it into another area of expertise? One last point. Although your positioning may change, thank you, House of Cards. House of Cards, when I actually looked at it and started reading into the background of it, House of Cards was actually a British show based on the British Parliament, but they just changed the characters and made the government more like the United States and brought the show over to the United States, and it became a hit. All right. It was the same show, but they changed the government and made it president instead. One last point, although your positioning may change, you can only stress one significant attribute at a time. Of course, you would like to go after every potential market simultaneously, but the reality is you might have limited resources. You need to stress one key attribute of your business. But can you sub-segment that positioning to reach different groups? Sure. You see it all the time. The classic example of this is soft drinks. Typically, companies will come out with the basic drink, say a cola. They will quickly follow with a version that has no sugar, all right, for the calorie conscious. And so you get Diet Cola. But some people who like Diet Colas don't like caffeine. So they'll come out with a caffeine-free Diet Cola. And the company will expand from there. They'll give you offerings like Cherry Cola, Vanilla Cola, Diet Cherry Cola, Diet Vanilla Cola, and there are caffeine-free versions on top of that. So that's an example of taking a basic product and then tailoring that product so you can reach more different segments of the same group of people, which in that case would be soda drinkers. Financing the venture. One of the things that surprised me when I began teaching entrepreneurship was that many students did not like numbers, or they didn't want to talk about them. They were more interested in marketing and the production aspect of their ideas. But that is a mistake. As I said, I'm opposed to making them do a business plan where they project out 5 years. The reason is simple. You don't know what's going to happen during those 5 years. Still, you have a good idea of how much money is going to be required for you to get started. Rule of thumb, figure out how much money you'll need to keep the company going for a year without any revenue coming in, and then add 30% to that. You can say I'm being awfully conservative, but based on my experience, I am not. It's going to take you longer than you think to assemble a team, refine your idea, and get to market. On top of that, it will take more time than you could ever imagine to get paid for your product and service where you're actually making a profit. For example, you're going to send out invoices that says that a customer can get a 2% discount if payment is received within 30 days. In many cases, they're going to pay in 60 or 90 days, and still deduct that 2%. So, debt or equity, last one. While most people may not have thought about or don't want to discuss financing in detail, when it comes to the question of debt versus equity, they'll talk your ears off. Everyone's starting position is that they don't want to give up equity, and if they have to, it should be non voting shares of their company so they can control whatever happens to their company. They plan to use other people's money for all the funds they need to get their startup underway while they retain all the voting shares. Theoretically, it's a lovely position to take. Now let's talk about the real world. Investors who are willing to invest large sums in your idea are going to want to have a say. So, you can take an idea of two classes of stock, one that has the voting rights and the other that doesn't or has limited rights off the table. They'll never go for it. So, when you're thinking about the company that you want to start, for those of you all who are considering going public with your company in the future or getting angel investors, those are things that you need to consider. Am I going to sell shares of my company and allow people to have voting rights in my company? Or am I just going to sell shares and they're going to be silent partners? All right. If you would like to call in today, here is the number where you can call in. Let me make sure that my volume is up here. So if you would like to call in today and you have a question or a comment, this is a U.S. number, so I'm only right now taking U.S. calls, but we'll be setting up shortly so we can do calls all over. If you would like to call in and you have a question or a comment, you can feel free to do so. I'll give us a few minutes. And here we go. Caller ending in 6227. Hello.
God bless you, Pastor.
How are you?
Dante. I'm good. I was calling because yesterday I read an article about the Secretary of Commerce, and he was discussing why should the federal employees go to food banks and things like that. But as you had previously said, most people are living from paycheck to paycheck. But when I looked at his net worth as of 2016, it said that he was worth $2.9 billion. So therefore, they have the rich in those positions does not understand that the people, the lower employees are not making that kind of money or have that kind of money to invest. And secondly, why would the President of the United States want to make a speech, the union speech, when people are suffering? And what would he say to the people as concerning they've cut out the nutritionist food program? They saying the program they call WIC, which is Women, Infant, and Children, have no money. They're cutting medical. And federal employees are saying that there's one particular woman was saying she's on insulin and she's rationing out her insulin. So I was just wondering, what would he say in the State of the Union address to the people besides play the blame game with the Democrats?
You know, those are actually really good questions. Which is why I would say balance of power is important. I am glad that Nancy Pelosi, I don't always agree with everything she does, but I am glad that she used her power to postpone that meeting, because what we don't want is we don't want someone giving a speech who has been callous in the past. We know that our president has been very callous in his speech in the past. We don't want people harmed further through a speech while they're already suffering. And then earlier, the first part of what you asked, or the first part of what you commented on, I remember reading that a couple of days ago where the gentleman said, well, why don't they just go and get a loan?
Yes,
In
credit
case,
union and
yeah,
bank.
in
Yeah.
case people don't realize, some of the entities that would require loan approval in the first place are also closed.
Yes.
When you go online and you're looking at some of the government sites, because I just went online recently just looking up some things concerning loans, the sites are actually closed down. You
Yes.
can't even go in to click on to search for any information. So just it just shows that people are out of touch, really, that many of our
Yes.
leaders are out of touch with the everyday working person. And he is. I did see that particular representative that was speaking is worth several billions of dollars. He's a billionaire.
His name is Wilbur Ross. He's the Secretary of Commerce.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Barbara, you have brought up some good questions. We do need to keep these questions at the forefront. And those of you who are out there, I do know that there are several organizations that are offering help. Also, PayPal, by the way, is also offering help for furloughed workers. So if you are a furloughed worker, go onto the paypal.com site, and there they are also offering help. They are also offering people an opportunity to give toward a furloughed workers assistance fund on PayPal. Barbara, thank you for calling in. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, this is a problem, people, that we do have so many people who are holding office right now who do not identify with the average working American. And I think, as we are learning, many of them are out of touch with like basic needs, basic services. And here, living here in the DMV area, you see it in some ways that other areas of our country might not be seeing it, because many of the government workers live right here in Maryland, in Virginia, in Washington, D.C. We see the food lines at the grocery stores. People are standing in line, or they're standing in line at their church at the food bank because they don't have the money. They don't have the money. And as we said before, the data showed that about 70% of Americans are living from paycheck to paycheck. All right. So we got time for one more caller. If you want to call in to either share your thoughts or ask a question. One more time for one more caller. 540-680-0633. If you have a comment or a question. Comment or a question. And I'll just give it a few more minutes. As we are waiting for a potential caller, I want to encourage you all that those of you who can and will, if you want to subscribe to Daring Dialogues, you can now go to patreon.com/Daring Dialogues. And for the cost of about 2 cups of coffee a month, you can become a regular subscriber and have access to all of the bonus content that I am dropping into the Patreon. All right. Well, if I don't have any more callers, I want to thank you today for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness, so please go out today and be light. The wealth principles that we are offering, I encourage you to take advantage of them, apply them, add them to your business. Think about who you're going to have help you to be more accountable to the results that you want to see in your life. I know we have a Lady Apostle who is here on our YouTube this morning. Lady Apostle is an excellent coach. She's an excellent inner healing coach. I encourage you to take her up on the services that she is offering. You can reach her, I believe, at vanessaRbrooks.com. If that's correct, please let me know. Or Lady Apostle, if you would put that on the screen to share that so you can sign up. She has all kinds of life transformation coaching available. If you're looking for a writing coach, if you're looking for a personal individual coach, I have some spaces open in March for individual coaching, and April will be my Writer Speakers Intensive 1 if you're interested in improving your writing and your speaking ability and skills. All right. So, thank you again for your time and attention. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend, and God bless.